Rude manager calls me a Karen for not tipping at McDonald's. I was trying to pick up some food for my young son, who had been in therapy all day and wanted a treat. It was a pretty typical exchange, up until the employee put his hands right in my face and demanded a tip. I later called the manager about it because I felt the way this employee went about demanding money was unprofessional and potentially aggressive. But the manager turned out to be even ruder. I went to McDonald's yesterday with my 4-year-old and 1-year-old. My 4-year-old has autism and after a long day of therapy requested a Happy Meal. So I obliged. I did a curbside pickup order, my food came out, I took the food and said, "Thank you so much." I put the food down, and when I went to turn back around to roll my window up, there was a hand inside my car almost in my face. So I said, "What the heck?" and I backed up. His hand stayed there, and he said he would like a tip. I was confused and simply said, "What?" He stated again that he would like a tip. I told him that I don't carry cash, and I was sorry, but I didn't have a tip for him. He stared at me and didn't say anything, but still had his hand out. I didn't know what to do at that point, so I rolled my window up and looked away. He finally walked away and stormed back off into the store. I've had interactions with this employee before, and I could tell that he had a disability, possibly autism, but I wasn't sure, obviously since I didn't know him. I called the McDonald's to speak to a manager about it because he made me uncomfortable with how demanding he was, and the fact that he wouldn't leave after I had told him I didn't have any cash. The manager states that he has autism and doesn't know any better, and that someone earlier in the day had received a tip, so he probably thought it was okay to ask for one. I said, "Okay, I understand. My son also has autism, and I really do get that they can have a hard time reading social cues and can be impulsive." But I said that having autism was not an excuse to make people uncomfortable. I do not allow my 4-year-old to use his disability as an excuse to be rude or harass people, and I don't think a grown adult should either. The manager got really irritated with me and said I was being a Karen. I was not trying to get the employee in trouble in any way. I wanted it brought to the manager's attention so that he could be spoken to and told not to harass customers for tips. That was all. I feel it can be dangerous for the employee and the customers if this man were to put his hands in the wrong person's face unexpectedly, or if he were to become really upset and aggress at someone for not giving him a tip. I know not everyone with autism has aggression behaviors when they're upset, but this man was clearly upset I did not give him a tip, and I feel it would have escalated if I didn't roll my window up and start to leave. With the manager calling me a Karen, I really don't know if I was in the wrong here. Should I have just let it go? I do not understand why the power of Karen is so strong. This original poster knows that she spoke politely and simply wanted a concern to be addressed. Yet being called a Karen, which is wildly unprofessional on the manager's part, still made her doubt herself. If you don't believe there's been too much power given to this word, try an experiment. Go start an argument, try to make it as obvious as possible that you're in the wrong. Then cut out the beginning and end. Remove all context for how the argument started, then put it on TikTok with a Karen hashtag. Try not to drown in the flood of validation you receive. Assuming this OP hasn't highly edited the dialogue to skew in her favor, which is an argument you could make about literally any story on Reddit, then there's no way she's the jerk. She wasn't hateful toward the employee and didn't want him to be punished in any way. She just felt that someone should let him know not to stick his hands in people's cars and faces. The only valid response on the manager's part was, "Understandable, have a nice day." But do you disagree? Do you think there was a better way for this OP to handle the situation? Should she have not informed anyone at all? Or were her concerns valid? Leave a comment and let us know how you would have handled this. Muslim coworker steals my pork sandwich. I recently started to work in an office. I'm not very happy about it, as I prefer to work from home, but it's only temporary, so I'm hanging in there. Since I'm trying to save money, I take my own lunch instead of eating at one of the many restaurants near the office. Soon after I started, I noticed my food going missing from the break room. After digging a bit, I discovered who the culprit was. One of my coworkers, let's call him Mohammed, decided it was okay to take my lunch without asking for almost a week. I had to put a stop to this, but since I had no hard evidence, like a video of him eating my stuff, I decided to take justice into my own hands. You see, Muhammad is a Muslim, and apparently very serious about it, to the point that he has to let everyone know about this at least once a day. Nothing wrong with being serious about your religion, mind you, but when everyone knows you as the Muslim guy, because that's the only thing you talk about, you may want to diversify your interests. To me, however, he's known as the lunch looter. Since it's my lunch after all, and I have absolutely no dietary prohibitions, I decided to prepare myself a delicious pork sandwich. Pepperoni, ham, smoked sausage, chorizo, bacon, pork leg, cochinita, and even some chicharron for good measure. Oh, and don't forget extra jalapenos. Normally I don't like them, but I want this one to pack a punch. I call it the Squealing Supreme. Surely any person who adheres to religious rules would be a fool to even go near my succulent sandwich, right? Well, it seems like Muhammad is the type of person to grab food out of the fridge without checking it first, which led to hilarious results. At some point before my lunch hour, the office was set off by bloody screams coming from the break room. When someone ran off to check, they found poor Muhammad crying about eating pork and saying that someone put non-halal meat in the fridge. This was my cue to get HR involved. This level of drama wouldn't go unnoticed anyway, and catching Muhammad eating my sandwich was all I needed to get them on my side. Sadly, the payoff wasn't great. He was let off with a warning, and his excuse for taking my lunch is that I always brought halal food, basically just chicken and vegetables, so he took it. It's not that he thought it was for him, he just said he targeted my stuff because I was the only one bringing clean food. He was still quite mad, and in the last few days he's been giving me the death glare. Moral of the story, don't take people's food. Who knows, maybe they enjoy the food your religion considers sinful. So, obviously, anyone who steals food is a jerk. But this story doesn't make sense on a number of levels. First of all, if every colleague in this office is referring to their one brown coworker as the Muslim guy, that might say more about them than it does about him. Second, if this OP is bringing lunch for the sole purpose of saving money, why go out and buy 8 kinds of meat for this one sandwich? In fact, how did he fit all of these ingredients on one sandwich in the first place? And does Muhammad eat lunch blindfolded? There's no way he couldn't see what was on this thing. This OP also acts like it's a twist that Muhammad ate the sandwich. But wasn't that the goal? Why else put jalapenos on it if you don't like jalapenos? For a bit of context, there's a troll on Reddit who occasionally posts this exact same story, except that the food thief is usually kosher. It seems that troll has found a new religious target. The moral of not stealing food is always a good one, but the better moral might be for this troll to take his own advice and diversify his interests a bit. These constant posts about pork sandwiches just don't have a lot of meat to them. Also, chicken isn't halal by default. Good fiction writers research their subjects first. Step it up, buddy. And for anyone who believes this is real, there's still no reason HR couldn't have been involved from the get-go in this story. Religious revenge is not the way, and would only run the risk of getting you both in trouble. I say this because food thieves in general are real, and you should not let this inspire you to handle the situation in a way that would make some consider you the bad guy. Germaphobe girlfriend refuses to share dishes with my dog. My girlfriend Emily moved in with me about 4 months ago. Basically, Emily is a massive germaphobe, so she's always cleaning. I don't mind that, but she also has a real issue with certain things like outdoor clothes on the bed, not showering every night, etc. She also has a huge issue with my dog eating out of the human bowls. She knew that my dog, Chris, ate out of the bowls before she moved in, so she brought her own stuff, which, to be honest, I found a bit immature. But I love her, so I went with it. This issue only got bigger because she would refuse to eat food out of the apartment stuff, even when I prepared food for her. So I called her ungrateful, and we had our first big argument, during which she said I was being a slob. I'm pretty tidy and clean, just not excessively so. And I don't think it's weird for my dog to use my bowls and lick plates clean and all that. I see people do this all the time on TV. 2 days ago, Emily bought some dog stuff for Chris, including a bowl, and she talked about getting a new dinner set. But I like mine, so I said no. She's being petty. When she said it would mean a lot to her, I just said that I don't get the big deal, that she's been eating out of my sick bowl and pea cup for the past few months. She started crying and went to throw up. Then she left to stay with her family. Am I the jerk? Edit. I do not have a pea cup nor a sick bowl. These were things I said in frustration. First of all, if this woman is a true germaphobe, then dealing with that phobia does not make her immature. It literally just makes her a woman with a phobia. Second, who names a dog Chris? Third, buying Chris a new dog bowl was not petty. It actually sounds like she knows this was largely her issue, and she was just trying to compromise in a way that made it clear she didn't hate the dog. I actually believe this story, but I'm not completely convinced that this girl ran from the room crying after one mean remark. That just happens way too much on Reddit, usually when the OP is being dismissive of the other person's feelings and trying to cast them as the childish villain. And even if some of the commenters thought what OP said was true, I doubt she did. She'd been living with him for months. She'd know if he was constantly whizzing in a cup. Messing with someone's phobia on purpose is definitely a jerk move. It sounds like these two just aren't a very good match. She wants to be with a guy who doesn't share plates with his dog. The sea is alive with fish who meet that description. They'll both be fine and can move on easily once they find someone who fits their respective lifestyles a bit more. But staying in this and constantly arguing isn't doing either of them any favors. If you made it this far in the video, consider liking and subscribing for more videos coming. Pizza-faced Karen thinks it's okay to call me fat. I'd like to think that I'm fit. I was an athletic girl growing up. As an adult, I work out and watch what I eat. People would not describe me as skinny. I'm more muscular because I do heavy weightlifting. People at work know that I go to the gym, but they don't know that I lift and that I'm trying to build muscle on purpose. They assume I have this certain lifestyle because I'm trying to lose weight. This happened last week, and my friends and colleagues have mixed opinions. I have a colleague, Nina, and she is a really bad acne problem. She also likes to make unsolicited and sometimes snide remarks about people. Most of our other colleagues just ignore her because they don't want office drama. I'm generally a quiet person. I keep to myself. But if someone is rude to me, I usually have a comeback. Although this rarely happens at work because most people let me be. So one day at lunch, I was eating with my friends in the office cafeteria. Since I eat healthily, I prefer to bring my own lunches to work. I always eat red rice instead of regular rice, and no one really cares about what I eat. While eating, Nina decided to join us at our table, so we let her. Nina saw my lunch and made a face. Then she commented, "I don't understand how you're always eating red rice, which is supposed to help you lose weight, but you're still fat. It's a waste of money, to be honest." Red rice is more expensive than white rice, by the way. I laughed at this and replied, "Oh, you mean like you and your dermatologist? I can imagine you pay them a lot, but your acne doesn't seem to be going away." She then called me the B word, got up, and walked out. Some of my friends were on my side because she started it, while some were saying I'm a jerk because my weight doesn't really bother me, but her acne bothers her a lot. So am I the jerk? I'd love to know where this OP works that she feels the need to mention bringing her own lunch. I can count on 0 hands the number of offices I've worked in where lunch was provided. That's just one of the many ways in which it feels like this story more likely took place in a middle school than a corporate building. But let's go ahead and take it at face value anyway. While it's true that Nina started it, OP is still a little bit of a jerk. Maybe I grew up in a different era, but I was always told that it doesn't matter who started it. Yes, you can and should shut a rude person down. The question is how you choose to go about it. Nobody really wins when you pile personal attacks on top of other personal attacks. Skin conditions can pop up out of nowhere. How are OP's other coworkers supposed to feel around her now if they suffer a breakout? Nina and OP don't exist in a vacuum. There are others who might be affected by OP's choice of words, people who did nothing to antagonize the situation. That's always something to consider before going after another person. Going after someone's personality is one thing, but going after their looks just makes you guilty of the same petty behavior as them. It's not that hard to rise above it. Parents made my autistic girlfriend cry, so I cut them off forever. Hello everyone, my name is Emily. I'm 26 years old. I've never had a good relationship with my parents. I've always been the complete opposite of them. They're deeply religious Christians, and I'm the polar opposite of that. I'm a pagan, and I'm gay. I haven't seen them since I turned 18 because of the final blowout fight I had with them after coming out as a lesbian. I've been with my current girlfriend, Haley, for 6 years, and we're engaged. She's 27 years old. She's a very beautiful, smart woman. She has long, black hair, green eyes, and wears glasses. She's small. She's about 5 feet tall and 100 pounds. She's autistic and has an anxiety disorder, but I love her to pieces. She's a big nerd. She has Star Wars and Star Trek posters up in our house. She's very into Legos and has a whole room in our house dedicated to her Legos. She has a lot of the things she's built with her Legos on display in that room. Most of it she's built freehand, just doing whatever she feels like. It's actually quite impressive to me. It's one of the things I love about her. She's super sweet and tries to find the good in everything and everyone. Sometimes, though, she's too sweet for her own good. She's never met my parents, as I've done everything I could to keep that from happening, for obvious reasons. I know just how mean my parents are, after all. There's a reason I left at 18 and haven't spoken with them since. The other day, Haley and I were talking, and she brought up the idea of meeting my parents. I told her that was a bad idea. But over the next couple of weeks, she kept nagging me, asking how bad they could be, and I eventually gave in. I called them and invited them over for dinner, and they agreed. I was hoping, especially for my sweet girlfriend's sake, that I was wrong and that they had softened up over the years. But that turned out not to be the case. When they arrived, my father immediately started making rude comments about the posters on the wall, asking who was the silly nerd that put those up, while my mother laughed. I told them my girlfriend did, and to please be nice to her. My parents both just laughed at me, which really started to make me angry. Haley was in her Lego room building something, and I brought them in there. My father started immediately belittling my girlfriend. He called her stupid and asked what kind of child still plays with Legos at 27. He then made fun of her for her science fiction posters. My mother just laughed. My girlfriend was just stunned and started to cry, and my father called her a baby. I immediately stepped in front of my girlfriend and told my parents that was enough, and that they were no longer welcome in our house or around my girlfriend again. I also told them that their relationship with me was over, and that I never wanted to see them again. Then they headed out the door to leave, and my father said I was a terrible daughter on his way out the door. After they left, I sat down on the couch with Haley and held her while she cried for a good 20 minutes. She said that she just couldn't imagine how someone could be so mean to someone they had never met. After she stopped crying, she went back in the room with her Legos to build, as it's something she loves to do, especially when she's upset. While she was doing that, I cooked her favorite meal, then called her to dinner. After that, we sat on the couch in the living room and watched Star Wars while we ate until she passed out on my shoulder and I carried her to bed. I think I turned the night around for her. Was I too harsh with my parents? I don't think I was, but let me know what you think. In my commentary on previous stories, I've used the term cartoon villain a lot. Well, remember in Pinocchio how the fox does all the talking while the cat just reacts? In this story, the dad is the fox and the mom is the cat. They are literally cartoon villains. Interestingly enough, that's not the main reason some commenters doubted that this happened. Apparently, in the adult LEGO community, it's considered wrong to refer to LEGO blocks as Legos. You learn some interesting things about the world when researching these stories. If this did happen, OP's obviously not the jerk for cutting contact with Honest John and his cackling hyena wife. That said, when the dad started making fun of the Star Wars posters, why on earth would you think it was a good idea to bring him to the Lego room? Was there a chance he would pick that moment of all moments to become a kind-hearted person? I guess the truest part of this story, and the saddest, is that some people will keep showing you who they are no matter how many chances you give them to change. Not all people, but a pretty upsetting number. How do you feel about this story? Would you have cut contact with the parents? Would you have given them a second chance in the first place? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We'll be in our Lego room waiting to hear from you. Please leave your stories in the comments. I'd love to make a video of them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.